Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer. I'm podcasting from Ma'ale Adumim in Israel. We are all familiar with the notion of the self-fulfilling prophecy. We have all experienced them in one way or another and either accepted them as real or rejected them as ridiculous. It is interesting that this notion, the reality of which cannot really ever be proven or disproven, strikes us in these opposite ways. What are these things, and why do they evoke such contrasting feelings within us? Let us briefly review what we are talking about. A self-fulfilling prophecy is loosely defined as a belief in the likelihood of some future event which influences current behavior in such a way that the future event comes to be. At first glance, it is entirely reasonable. If we expect ourselves to fail at something, it very possibly influences our actions to make that failure more likely. But on the other hand, it could just as easily do the opposite. This somewhat fluky reasoning is the reason why nobody is really sure if these things actually take place in reality. They seem real at the time, but they disappear when re-examined, like a mirage in the desert. In a sense, a self-fulfilling prophecy is itself a self-fulfilling prophecy. If one believes in the idea, it happens. If one doesn't, it seems to fade into irrelevance. These pesky recursive beliefs enter our lives on every imaginable level. They are there in childhood, even though a child has no concept whatsoever of what they are. They are there throughout our young adult and adult years, haunting us with their prescience as we reject them as absurd. They hit us with a vengeance as we go through our old age, reminding us that they have been there all along, and that our foolish dismissing of them brought us to where we have ended up. They work both on the individual level and on the group level. They are believed to wreak havoc on societies, to bring down economies, and to create wars. They are perhaps the single most guiding feature in leading human history down the path it has taken, but nobody knows if they actually exist. Apparently, the idea was first conceived of sometime in the 20th century, but this itself is the product of modern belief, that people before us were hopelessly ignorant of everything except what was right in front of their eyes. If anything, they were much firmer believers in such things, being as the entire idea of prophecy was a generally accepted idea in times past, as opposed to now when it is assumed to be nonsense. It happens that the only form of prophecy that we acknowledge today is that which is self-fulfilled. Since then, it loses its eerie futuristic quality and is really nothing more than projecting a future into present behavior. In any case, we have now largely accepted the idea that not only does the present determine the future to a great extent, but also that our expectations of the future affect what the future will be. To some degree, we decide our own fate by envisioning it. This idea, perhaps not surprisingly, can be found in the Bible. Though it is difficult to distinguish between garden variety prophecy and the self-fulfilling type, there is no question that both are there. This should come as no surprise to anyone. Prophecy was as real as the rain to people in biblical times. It was something that made sense, since the notion of fate was much more powerful in the ancient mind. When it came to self-fulfilling prophecies, these were understood as the same thing, but with the person involved playing a direct role in matters. It happens that one of the classic examples of this is found in this week's Parsha. The Parsha is called Vayeshev, which means, and he dwelt. It refers to Jacob once again in the land of Canaan after his 20-year period in Mesopotamia, during which he built up his family. His return to his homeland and the challenges of resettling there were the subject of much of last week's Parsha. This week is his attempt to settle down and to relax. What actually happened was the opposite. The first thing that happens is that his favorite son, Yosef, who seems to have been spoiled a bit by his father, begins regarding himself as better than his brothers. His father made him a special coat, the famous, quote, coat of many colors, to single him out as special. The other brothers begin to despise him for this and are unable to even speak to him civilly. As problematic as this could have become, he compounds things by having dreams which demonstrate unequivocally that he was to be the master of them all. Then jealousy and hatred grow even greater, so that today we might call them dysfunctional. It is the dreams more than the boasting that brought about this chaos. His first dream has them all in a field gathering sheaves of grain. In the uncanny logic of dreams, Their sheaves all spontaneously bow down to his. They take this to mean exactly what it seemed to imply, that he was aiming to become their master. The hatred only grows more, but things don't stop there. He has a second dream. This one even more explicit than the first, and apparently including his parents in the picture. The dream shows him the sun, the moon, and 11 stars all bowing down to him. What else could this mean other than he considered himself destined to be almost like a god to them? He told this one not only to his brothers, but to his father. Jacob rebuked him for this outrageous display of prophetic authority, asking him point blank if he expected his father, mother, and brothers to bow down to him. Whether this was an unwise move under the family circumstances is left unsaid. What does happen is that as he approaches them, they spot him from a distance and decide abruptly to kill him. Reuben, the oldest, cautions them against this rash decision and suggests instead to toss him into a hole in the wilderness. Reuben, for his part, is credited with really trying to delay things and to save Yosef. What does happen is that they strip him of his infamous coat, toss him into a hole when they notice a passing caravan. Yehuda, the fourth oldest and the one who everyone listened to, suggests that instead of killing him, they sell him to this caravan. That way, not only are they condemning him to a certain death, but they will profit from the venture besides. So it was that things turned out. Yosef is brought by this caravan to Egypt and sold there as a slave. The final third of the Parsha tells the story of his trials and tribulations as a servant in the home of a royal figure, complete with attempted seduction by his master's wife and imprisonment for his suspected crime of trying to rape her. This all led ultimately to Yosef interpreting the dreams of his fellow prisoners correctly, and in next week's Parsha, becoming appointed the chief advisor to the Pharaoh because of his brilliant interpretation of Pharaoh's dreams. This in turn would lead to directing all economic and agricultural matters in Egypt during a severe famine. His family, who are struggled with this famine themselves, eventually make their way down to Egypt to buy grain, where Yosef spots them and arranges things so that his brothers actually do bow down to him. This, of course, is the prelude for the reuniting of the family and their moving to Egypt, and eventually the enslavement of the Israelites and the story of the Exodus. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Let's focus on that apparent fulfillment of those dreams. This is unmistakable in the story, and Yosef himself is described as being totally aware of what was really going on behind the scenes. How are we to explain this if not that the dream predicted what was to be? While this is probably the intent of the text, there is another explanation that might not be in contradiction to the prophetic leaning of the story. This is the idea of the dream prophecy being self-fulfilled. He aroused the suspicions of his father and the hatred of his brothers. He also, when he had the chance, rigged things up so that the dreams came to at least partial fruition. If this isn't a self-fulfilling prophecy, it is difficult to imagine what is. An interesting thing about all this that is frequently overlooked is Jacob's cautious reaction to the dream that he heard. The Torah only says that he watched over the matter. What does this mean? The fact is that we don't know. But we do know that he immediately attempted to set things on a better course by sending Yosef off to check up on his brothers. What happened was something else entirely. What was Jacob really trying to do? Perhaps this was his way of, quote, watching over the matter. He sensed perhaps that there was something real to the dreams that had to be taken seriously. He didn't know what to make of it, but he realized that it was not exactly good. He tried to make things right, but only set them more on their predestined course. This also, in a sense, was part of the self-fulfilling prophetic nature of this whole sequence of events. Jacob was trying to steer the present to avoid an unsavory future, but instead only drove things on in the direction of that very future. His attempt to, quote, watch over the matter made the very thing he dreaded come to be. This is sometimes the way life goes. We do what we can to steer the present and the future in a certain way, only to find that reality has its mind made up to be whatever it is that it will be. We may even sense or believe that things are going along a very predictable path and do what we can to influence that preordained course of events. We may try to arrange things as Yosef did to guarantee that some future will come to fruition. Things may work out accordingly or they may not. We may try to pull a Jacob and steer things so that a predicted future does not come to be. We may be successful, or we may find that our very manipulation of things in the present was what set that predicted future in motion. Either way, it is our actions in the present which act like a prophecy in setting the future on its destined course. We like to believe that we control much of what happens in our lives. This is so reflexive of belief that it almost defines what it means to be human. What is so strange about this is that we are frequently taken aback when we realize that it was our very actions which did indeed determine much of our future. We do have a great deal of control over what happens to us. We do guide our own future, though it might not reveal itself in the way that we expected. Shabbat Shalom.